In this video, you'll learn how to get started with Google Data Studio. We'll cover the steps to create a report, including how to connect your data, explore different ways to visualize your data, and look at how you can customize and style your reports. I'll show you the updated homepage in Data Studio, and we'll cover the freeform and responsive layout options for your reports. We'll also touch on the different chart styling options you can use to give your reports maximum impact. Data Studio lets you present data using a range of visualization options. You can use it to create dashboards, multi-page reports, and more. Ready to start building your own report? Let's head to Data Studio and get started. You can find Data Studio by heading to datastudio.google.com. We're currently looking at the home page, and in the middle of the page we can see recent reports and dashboards we've been using. On the left we can filter the reports, so instead of looking at reports we've recently used, we can view reports that have been shared with me or owned by me. If you want some inspiration, you can also select templates on the left to view pre-built dashboards and reports you can use and customize. Below this is conversational analytics, which lets you connect to existing BigQuery data agents so you can use conversational chat with data stored in BigQuery. And I also want to mention at the very top of the interface, you can search for reports. In this video, we're going to connect Google Analytics as the data source for our report. But as we'll see, there are a whole range of different data sources you can use with your reports. To create a new report, we can click Create a Report at the top, or we can click Create on the top left corner and then choose Report. The first thing we need to do is add a data source to our report. To do this, we need to use a connector. This is simply the way we get data into our report. We can see that all of the Google connectors are listed first. This includes the connectors for Google Analytics, Google Ads, Google Sheets, and more. Scrolling down, you can find connectors from other partners. For example, if you wanted to include data from Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or other platforms, you can use one of these options since Google doesn't provide inbuilt connectors for these platforms. You can search for connectors, and you can also select My Data Sources to use data sources that you have previously connected to other reports. I'm going to select Google Analytics as the connector for this report. We can then select the Google Analytics account and the property we want to use for the report. Today, we're going to use Google's demo property, but you will probably want to use your own Google Analytics property or other data source when you create your report. Once we're happy, we just need to click Add, and then Add to Report. We're now looking at the canvas or page. This is where we build our report. And we can see we can choose from two layout options for the canvas. We can choose from Freeform layout or responsive layout. Selecting the Freeform option means that the pages of your report will be a fixed size. This gives you complete control over the position and sizing of elements, which is useful if you want to print out reports or present them consistently. Selecting responsive gives you a flexible layout option where all of the elements will automatically adjust their size. This is useful if you want to present the report on different screen sizes. The main thing I want to highlight is that currently we can't continually switch between these options. For example, we can't create a report using the Freeform layout, switch to responsive, and then switch back to Freeform. So I recommend taking a moment to think about if you want your report to be kept a consistent size or if you want it to automatically adjust to different screen sizes. For this report, we're going to use the Freeform layout, so let's select this option. we can see that a table is automatically added to our report. Across the top, we have a range of options. For example, we can select Insert or Add a Chart to add visualizations to our report. This includes time series charts, column charts, combo charts, pie charts, tables, bubble maps, field maps, heat maps, line maps, geocharts, scorecards, scatter charts, bullet charts, stacked area charts, pivot tables, tree maps, gauges, and more. Since the table is selected, we can modify this chart using the panel on the right-hand side. We can see there are two columns. The first column lets us adjust the chart. This is where we can change the dimensions and metrics presented in the chart and change the style of the chart. And the second column shows us all of the fields that are available for the data source. So this lets us view all of the available dimensions and metrics we can use. Okay, so we're going to create a single page report that shows us how people are finding our website, along with other important metrics. We're going to include various elements from the Google Analytics acquisition reports. Let's start by naming our report. To do this, let's click Untitled Report on the top left corner. And let's give our report a name. I'm going to name my report Traffic Acquisition by Loves Data. Now let's remove the chart that was added by default. To do this, we select the chart and click Delete on our keyboard. And let's adjust the layout of the report. To do this, we can select Theme and Layout on the top right. Or we can select File on the top left and then choose Theme and Layout. Now let's select the Layout tab. And under Canvas Size, let's select US Letter Landscape and change this to Portrait. Now we're going to add some key metrics to the top of our report. Let's select Insert, then Scorecard. We can see the chart shows us the total number of views. Let's change this. Let's select Views and search for Active Users. And select our new metric. We can now see the scorecard updates and we can see the total number of active users. Next, we are going to add a comparison to the chart. This will let us quickly see if the number of users is increasing or decreasing. To do this, let's look for Comparison Date Range. Enable the option. And let's click None. The calendar pops up and let's select None on the top right corner. We can choose from Previous Period, which will be the same number of days before the current date range. Or we can choose Previous Year, which will be the same date range from the previous year. For this report, I'm going to select Previous Period. Then we click Apply. We can now see the percentage change in users compared to the previous period. Now let's copy our scorecard to present another metric in our report. To do this, you can use keyboard shortcuts or you can right-click on the chart and then select Duplicate. Let's use this scorecard to show the average amount of time people spend on the website. To do this, let's select the metric and search for and select Average Session Duration. Let's duplicate the scorecard again. And let's change the metric to Key Events. This lets us see the total number of key events which report the number of conversions people have completed on the website. Now let's duplicate the scorecard one more time. And let's change the metric to Total Revenue. And for this scorecard, let's select the Style tab. And let's enable compact numbers and set the number of decimal places to 0. This makes it easier to understand the revenue being generated at a glance. Now that we've added some top-level metrics to our report, let's add a time series chart. Let's select Insert, and then select Time Series. Let's ensure Active Users is selected as the metric. This shows us the overall trend for active users in the selected date range. We can use this to quickly pinpoint particular spikes and dips in traffic. Next, let's add a table to our report. Let's select Insert and then select Table. And let's change the dimension from date so we can see our marketing channels. To do this, we can click on the current dimension and then search for Session Default Channel Group and select our new dimension. We can then see the table updates. Now let's change the metric that's presented in the table. Let's select the default metric and change this to Sessions. And now let's add another metric to our report. Let's search for Engagement Rate and add this to the chart. We can now see the table shows us the different marketing channels sending people to our website, the number of sessions for each channel, and the engagement rate. This lets us quickly see our most important marketing channels and if people are actually engaging with our website and content. Next, we're going to customize how metrics are presented in the table. Let's make sure we have the chart selected. And let's select the Style tab. For this example, I want to customize the way the metrics are displayed. So I'm going to scroll down and look for Metric 1. Then I'm going to select Number and change this to Bar. We can see our chart updates to show a visual comparison for the metric. Now let's select Show Number so that we can see the metric included in the table. We now have the metric along with a simple visualization. Okay, now let's repeat this for the second metric. We need to look for Metric 2, and then change Number to Bar, and enable Show Number. Okay, now we're going to copy this table to present other data in our dashboard. Again, you can use keyboard shortcuts, or you can right-click and select Duplicate. I'm going to modify this table to show all of the referring websites that are sending traffic to our website. To do this, I'm going to change the dimension. Let's select Session Default Channel Group and change this to Session Source. Now we can see that this does include some referring sites, but it also includes other traffic sources. This means we need to apply a filter to the chart to only include referrals. To do this, let's look for the filter option under our metrics. And let's click Add Filter. And then click Create a Filter. Let's name the filter Referrals Only. Let's leave the filter as an Include filter. Then we need to select a field. Let's search for and select Session Medium. Then let's choose Equal to, and let's search for Referral and select it as the value. Now let's click Save. That's it. We can see our table is updated to only include referral traffic. Now we're going to duplicate our original table again. We're going to use this table to present the custom campaigns we are tracking in Google Analytics. For example, our email campaigns and other custom inbound marketing. To do this, we're going to change the dimension. Let's select Session Default Channel Group and change this to Session Campaign. Now we can see there are a number of rows that aren't from our custom campaigns. We can see a row for organic, a row for direct, a row for referral, and one for not set. So we need to create another filter to remove these rows from the chart. Let's look for Filter in the Setup tab and click Add Filter. We can see the filter we just created, but we need to create a new one. So let's click Create a Filter. Let's name the filter Custom Campaigns Only. And let's change Include to Exclude. Now we need to search for Session Campaign, then select Regular Expression Match. Now I want you to enter caret, backslash, opening parenthesis, full stop, plus sign, backslash, closing parenthesis, $sign. This will match any values that start and end with a parenthesis. So this will exclude the organic, direct, referral, not set, and other rows we saw previously. You might need to customize this regular expression depending on what you find in your Google Analytics reports, so feel free to adjust it if needed. I've included the regular expression I've used in the description below this video. Okay, now let's click Save. That's it. We can see our table is updated and the rows showing organic, direct, referral, and not set traffic have been removed. Let's duplicate our original table again. We're going to use this table to present the landing pages on our website. This will show us the pages people see first when they travel to our website. To do this, we need to change the dimension. Let's select Session Default Channel Group, and let's search for and select Landing Page. We can see the table now shows us the landing pages people have viewed on the website. However, there's a row that says Not Set. This is showing us sessions and engagement for non-landing pages. So let's add a filter to remove this. Let's name the filter Landing Pages Only. Let's change Include to Exclude. Then we search for and select Landing Page. Select Equal to and enter opening parenthesis not set, closing parenthesis, and select Not Set. Now let's click Save. Now the table only includes landing pages. This is useful for understanding the top entry points and for identifying opportunities to cross-promote offers on your website. Now let's add one more visualization to our report. I want to add a stacked bar chart that shows the overall trend for our top 5 marketing channels. To do this, let's click Add a Chart and choose the Stacked Vertical Bar Chart option. And let's resize the chart. We can see that the chart is showing us the marketing channels, but I want to see the trend for the date range, so we will need to modify the chart. We can see that the dates aren't in order, so let's change the Sort to Date. And then we need to select Ascending. Okay, so now we can see the dates in order, but I want to view more days, so let's select the Style tab and change the number of bars from 10 to 28. Now the chart includes a lot of information, and I only want to see the top 5 marketing channels, So let's change the series from 10 to 5. That's it. We can now see the overall trend for our top 5 marketing channels and a daily breakdown. Before we wrap up, I want to show you 3 more things as you begin using Data Studio. First, you can adjust the names of dimensions and metrics used in your reports. To do this, we need to select a chart. Let's select the chart we created for referrals. Now let's select the Setup tab. You can then hover over the metric or dimension you want to rename and click on the Edit icon. I can now rename the dimension. Let's name this one Referrals. Next, we can make our report more dynamic by adding a date range control. To do this, let's select Add a Control and choose Date Range Control. Let's set the default date range to last 28 days. And click Apply. We can see the date range for the report. And anybody viewing the report can now change the date range. Okay, finally, let's take a look at the default themes available in Data Studio. These allow you to quickly change the style of your report or dashboard. To change the theme, let's click Theme and Layout. We can now see the default themes that are available. This is a quick way to adjust the overall style of your reports. We've now created a Data Studio report to understand how people are finding our website using data from Google Analytics. I encourage you to spend time experimenting with the different visualizations and styling options you can use for your reports, and try the freeform and responsive layouts to see what works for you before building your final report. If you'd like to continue learning about Data Studio, you'll find links to extra resources, other tutorials, and my complete Data Studio course in the description below this video. And if you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all the latest tips and tutorials. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.